Last week, I shared with you about what's known as third quarter phenomenon. Just a quick recap. What researchers who study humans in isolation say is that how we are feeling matches with the phenomenon known as third quarter phenomenon, or TQP. TQP normally applies to those in space, submarines, and Arctic or Antarctic research facilities. I think we even have someone on the line here who is a chaplain at one of those Antarctic research facilities who might be able to attest to TQP. In TQP, we experience irritability, a depressed mood, and decreased morale. I think this applies to our time of quarantine because at first we panicked and prepared when shelter-in-place orders were made. Then we were sort of in this honeymoon phase. Isn't it grand how much we're connecting to others? I am cooking so much bread. Isn't this wonderful? And now we're in this third quarter, this weird place with irritability and general weirdness. I also mentioned last week that when I was leading 2-week-long backpacking trips in New Mexico, day 10 was usually about when all the group dynamic would break down, where people would start to rebel, where the going got even tougher, where people would want to quit. One of the ways, for better or worse, that we try to help those trekkers cope was that we would ask them, so what's the first thing you'll do when you get home? What's the first real meal that you hope to eat? They had been eating backpacking meals for the last 10 days, which are known for their nutritional value, but not their taste. Who will be the first person that you speak to? Usually the answer for the first question was, well, first thing I'm going to do is shower, do laundry, unpack, play with my dog. The answer to what meal would they eat was, these were usually teenage boys, so it was usually pizza or ice cream. The first person they'd speak to is usually their mom, a sibling, dad, or someone that they might be dating, or another friend. But what we didn't ask, and probably for good reason since we were still in the middle of the trek, was, what do you think you'll remember the most? What did you learn? How have you been changed? I'd love to go back to those hikers and ask those questions. It's now been 11 years or so since I since I took a crew out hiking. I wonder over these 11 years, what has helped them as they graduated high school or college, as they were deployed in the military, as they got married or had kids. There is the temptation now, I think, to wonder, what did we learn during quarantine, during shelter in place? How will we be different? What is the first song that we're going to sing? Who will be the first person that we hug? What will be the first thing we do once it is safe to gather again in person? How will the coronavirus and the quarantine change us? What will we do differently? In other words, who will we be when the masks come off? I've been thinking about this quite a bit. A colleague of mine in one of the umpteen Facebook groups I'm a part of posted that they were thinking of preaching this sermon with this title. The title is provocative. It's caught my attention ever since I first read it. First of all, I've been pondering what masks mean. The way I see it, either masks protect or they disguise. They cover our face, the very thing that helps define us, the way we are seen by other people. So when the masks come off, as we saw with the pictures that some of you submitted earlier, we will still be the people we were when the masks came on. And this is comforting. And it is also terrifying. As individual humans, we are generally good. We go shopping for others, we make masks, or we give masks away. We make meals, we donate money, but we also do terrible things. When the masks come off, as a society, I hope that we commission an independent governmental and non-governmental investigation of all that occurred, all of the failings, of the successes. And from that, we get actionable items that we take to heart to prevent the next pandemic or at least mitigate the results more than we have in this pandemic. When the masks come off, I hope that we have a day of collective mourning. A day doesn't seem enough right now, maybe a week. Today, you might be aware that the New York Times is running as its front page a list of 1,000 names of those who have died from COVID-19, with their name, their age, their location, and a one-line obituary. And that front page, and I'm actually told it goes on to page 12, not 1 through 12, but it just continues on to page 12. That list is just 1% of all of those who have died in this country. It is stunning, simply breathtaking. Perhaps we've been somewhat isolated from this in the Midwest for the moment, but the obituary pages in the East Coast newspapers go on for pages and pages, and other places in the Midwest. We will learn during this time that grief looks different to each one. We will find new ways to grieve. We will need our leaders to show empathy for the incalculable loss of life. We will be the same people as we were when the masks went on, and that is enough, and it isn't enough. We each need right now. We need everyone in order to survive. I hope that when the masks come off, we realize that viruses are machines that do not care about political designations, skin color, income. And thus we find ways to support research that prevents the spread of disease. Research exactly how it spreads, and research cures as well. The lab workers and the scientists too are essential workers. I hope that we also find ways to increase our scientific literacy amongst all of us. It was heartening to see us reach out and help those who are higher risk, to do simple things like grocery shopping or picking up a prescription. It might have once been that you thought of yourself as tough. You regarded yourself as hale and hearty, and it was really challenging to ask for help. But it likely saved people. It could have saved your life. We'll continue to be this helpful kind of people. I hope that we realize the necessity of comprehensive health care. I hope that we also realize that childcare is necessary for societies to function. I hope that we realize that mental health is just as important. It is just as tied to physical health. And let us also remember that there are stigmas to break here. I hope that we recognize the undercompensated or uncompensated labor that women do, and that we find ways to repay and balance that work and value it. I hope that we'll become wise consumers of the media and advertisements, and we learn how to call out advertisers who are manipulating us. Commerce depends on a sense of normalcy. It's like that thing that Martin Luther King Jr. said in his sermon, The Drum Major Instinct, where he says, they have a way of saying things to you that kind of gets you into buying. In order to be a man of distinction, you must drink this whiskey. In order to make your neighbors envious, you must drive this type of car. In order to be lovely to love, you must wear this kind of lipstick or this kind of perfume. And you know, before you know it, you're just buying that stuff. We must resist what I predict and others have predicted will become the ultimate gaslighting. There's a wonderful article out there by Julio Vincent Gambuto that describes this all very well. Resist that temptation to return to normal, because normal is what killed nearly 100,000 Americans from COVID-19. Yes, the pundits and the advertisers will say you'll want to return to normal, but normal is what meant that the racial inequities in healthcare have been heightened even more. Trying to return to normal is what creates hotspots, even after the most carefully planned events designed for social distancing. Imagine the gym memberships that they will try to sell. Imagine the travel packages that they will be hawking. I know that they are a necessity, but I shake my head at the Facebook ads selling those devices that allow you not to touch doorknobs made of that antibacterial copper. Think about this world that we live in where clothing companies share the happy news that they are making masks. It all seems necessary, but I also urge us to resist the normal, question any call to return to what was. I also hope that we'll become more patient. We'll understand that productivity is ridiculous. If during the quarantine you didn't learn a new language or read all of the unread books or write a novel during this pandemic, it's not that you lacked the will, it's that our way of life was significantly turned upside down. It is okay. It's okay that you didn't do that. I hope that we realize that essential workers deserve hazard pay and fair and just working conditions, that they are not soldiers to be sacrificed in a war. When we use that language, we must realize that it dehumanizes them. It makes their injuries and their deaths seem inevitable and justified. The deaths and injuries were not inevitable. They were preventable. We'll also realize the work that teachers do and how a plan of continuous learning is challenging. We'll learn different ways to balance our life. We'll come out of this, but we will be changed. I don't know how we'll be changed or the extent of that. It'll take years to fully see those changes. Growing up with 3 grandparents who came of age or grew up during the Great Depression, I remember thinking some of their patterns or their behaviors seemed strange to me. I didn't know what they had gone through. I was a child. I was self-centered, as all children are to some degree or another. But as I look back on it, I realize that those are the scars of coming of age during that time. My friends who are gathered virtually today, what I have come to realize is that these are in-between times. These are liminal times when we are betwixt in between. In this between time, let us take a moment to consider what we have learned about ourselves during this shelter in place or safer at home period. Feel free to just share in the chat a little bit some of the things that you have learned about yourself. We'll take a little bit of time before we move into the closing song. Remember that piece of learning, that thing that you learned during this shelter in place or safer at home time period. We'll come out of this, but we will be changed. May it be so.